Times Square open that has experts saying, forget what you think you know about spies and the tools they use. Bob Wallace is a former director of the CIA's Office of Technical Service. He built, designed, and provided many of the artifacts in this exhibit, and he joins us now with more on the secret world of espionage. We're glad to have you here this morning, Bob. Thank you for being here.
I sure appreciate the invitation.
This is a lot of really cool stuff, and it really also shows just how smart and frightening spying can be in our world's security, our country's security.
This exhibit at Discovery Times Center is the first of its kind that's ever been done publicly. It's an effort between the CIA and the FBI and Keith Melton, who has the world's largest private collection of spy gear.
He's very well known for his knowledge as well as his artifacts that he has. It's important to say also some of these things were just recently declassified, so people who go to Discovery Times Square are really seeing some things never seen before.
That's correct. Many of the devices, gadgets in there, the CIA only displayed them inside CIA headquarters for decades, and now they've been released to the public. What is particularly fascinating about this exhibit, though, is that it is for all ages. Children will love the laser spy game that is done there. Older people, scientists, will love the satellite.
And also, I guess, too, because we love the James Bond films, you know, as much as we also hear about it in our real life, which we'll talk about in just a few moments. But it's intriguing, and also it's important to know how governments work and try to bust up spy rings.
Well, James Bond films are fascinating because in the 1960s, the Russian KGB would actually go to premieres of James Bond movies because they thought that was the stuff that the British and the Americans actually were using against them.
Speaking of which, one of the things that you brought here with you brought some different artifacts. We've got a shoe, and didn't someone say you ought to be the Q, right?
Well, I don't know whether actually, I don't take credit for that. There are a lot of smarter people that do these things than I. But this shoe that we see, an American diplomat, you know, needed some shoe repair in Eastern Europe. One time he sent his shoe out to the cobbler, and the cobbler returned the shoe, you know, very nicely polished with a new heel and everything, including a listening device inside the heel, which you see.
And you wouldn't think, but sure enough, that picked up.
The secret to concealments is to put a device in something that no one suspects that it would be in.
Which brings us to our next item, a nickel. I mean, as thin as a nickel is, Bob, explain this to me.
Well, this little nickel actually exposed one of the major spy cases in New York. Mm-hmm. This is a nickel that had instructions in it on a very small piece of film for Soviet spy Colonel Rudolph Abel. He was one of the atomic spies, lived in New York, and these were his instructions, were on a little piece of film inside that nickel. And
if the camera could come back to me, I really want to show this, because this is the top of the nickel. This nickel split in half. So here's the nickel, which looks, here's the nickel. Okay, anyway, I understand it. Actually, absolutely splits in half. So next we have, when we're talking about the Chapman case, the Anna Chapman case over the past couple of years has been big news in New York. Yes. New York also being quite the center of some spy work here.
New York has been a center of espionage since the Revolutionary War. the nickel, actually, and the computer that we see here, Anna Chapman's computer, represent just a technological marvelous leap in communications. Mm-hmm. So from communicating with small pieces of film on microdot to Anna Chapman using the internet with steganography and special intranet communications with her handlers, she was part of the digital world. Now, she was part of the digital world, but when she was arrested, the FBI used a good J. Edgar Hoover developed technique and slapped those handcuffs right there on her.
These are the ones that were on Anna Chapman.
You can see those, yes, at the Times Square, at the Discovery Times Square.
As we wrap up, you brought a book here you wanted to share with us.
I did bring a book. Mr. Melton and I have put together, I think, is the first ever spy sites of New York City. And this lists about 100 operational stories, espionage stories, with the actual sites of where they occurred.
All right. See New York under a whole new light. Bob Wallace, thank you so much for being here and sharing this with us, telling us about this espionage exhibition at Discovery Times Square, which everyone can see through the end of the year. It's Times Square, Discovery Times Square, West 44th Street in Midtown Manhattan, now through March. We'll be right back.